Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are here to talk about a mining permit amendment and application for public meeting at this public meeting. My name is Jennifer Dixon. I'm going to be helping out moderating and being our hearing officer tonight. We have a few things to go over before we get into talking about the meat of the project. So the first thing is that your lines joining us here online are going to be muted during the meeting. We will have opportunities to ask questions verbally and to give verbal comments later on, but for the most part during the informational session, we will have your mics muted. We're also going to be recording this meeting, so if you have to jump off early or if you know of others that weren't able to join us tonight, we will have a recording of the meeting available in the next couple of days. Just a little bit about how to ask a question. So I'll go over this now and I will repeat it a little bit later too, but sometimes as we get into the informational session, people like to pop questions that they're having in the question box. So we're happy to have you do that. Just go ahead and type those questions into the question and answer box you can access at the bottom of your screen. We will have an opportunity when we get to the official question and answer part to raise your hand and ask your question verbally. If we have folks calling in, we'll just remind them that #2 on the phone will raise their hand so that they can ask a question or make a comment verbally as well. So a little bit, just very high level, how things will work tonight. We have a lot of EGLE staff here to talk about a couple different aspects of this project. We have staff from our air quality division, and then we also have staff from our geologic resource management division. So you'll be hearing from a few different people tonight. So we're going to go ahead and do like an informational session and then a question and answer. So during that question and answer, we'll be able to interact with all of you online, get your questions answered, do some of that back and forth. And then we're going to go into the hearing part of the night. And once we go into that part, we'll just be listening to comments on the record and we won't be responding to any questions that you might have. So I just want to talk a little bit about that now so folks understand how the evening is going to run. Another thing that I want to go over before we get into the meat of the meeting is our group norms for informational sessions and public meetings. So these are just some kind of guidelines on how we want to interact with each other during the meeting tonight. So we really want to make sure that we're all listening actively with an ear to understanding. So hopefully the content that we've put together for you today will help with that. We definitely want you to ask questions and ask for clarification. So if there's things that we talk about during the informational portion of the night that don't make sense or that you want clarification on, if we use an acronym that you want a refresher, anything like that, please definitely let us know. We want to make sure that we're criticizing ideas and not people. So if there's something that you don't agree with, definitely feel free to make comments on that, but we want to make sure we are criticizing those ideas and not people. We also want to continue to communicate respectfully with each other. That's going to be really helpful to have the meeting go smoothly tonight. And then we want to take space, make space. And what that means is just making sure that everyone who wants to ask a question or make a comment tonight gets that opportunity to do so. So really quickly, this is the agenda. I'm going to go through and have all of my EGLE staff turn their cameras on so that we can do a quick introduction. So if staff want to go ahead and do that. I also, before I get into introducing everybody in their role here tonight, I do want to introduce to you our decision maker on our air permit, and that is Annette Switzer. And I know she wants to officially welcome everybody to the meeting tonight. So Annette, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and take the mic.
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate that. We are grateful to have all of you join us online this evening. As Jen mentioned, I'm Annette Switzer, the Air Quality Division Director and the decision maker for this air permit action. Engaging with community members like all of you is a crucial part of the permitting process. The feedback we receive often leads to meaningful improvements. Tonight, you'll hear about how we evaluate technical information submitted in the air permit application, as well as some additional information from our Geologic Resources Management Division. We hope to help you learn more about the types of comments we can and cannot consider in our air decisions. We encourage you to ask questions, share your thoughts on the proposed air permit. As the decision maker, I'll be listening carefully to tonight's discussion. Thank you once again for being here. And Jennifer, I'll turn it back over to you to kick off the conversation.
Thanks, Annette. I appreciate you. So I'm going to just run through the staff that we have online tonight. the first folks that I'm going to introduce are the people you're going to be hearing the most from. They're going to be the ones doing our informational session. So the first person that I have is Andy Drury. So Andy is our lead air quality permit engineer. So he's going to be walking through a lot of the background information about air permits in general, how we get them, how the technical review works, what the draft permit contains, things like that. Then he's going to kick it over to Joe Scanlon. Joe is our air inspector up in the Upper Peninsula. He is responsible for inspecting Eagle Mine. So he'll be giving you just a little bit of a background on what the inspector's role is here. Then we're going to pass it over to Melanie Humphrey, and she is our mining specialist in the Geologic Resources Management Services Division. Sorry if I messed that up. I'm still getting used to their new name, so if I stumble over it, I apologize to everybody in that. But along with Mel, we also have Jolene Melcory. So she's a manager in the Geologic Resources Management Division. I'm going to skip back to air quality just to introduce the rest of the folks on the panel there. So the first person that I want to introduce you to is Mike Deppa. Mike Deppa is a toxicologist that we have working in air quality. So our toxicologists work to create health-based screening levels for toxic air contaminants. We also have Cindy Hodges. Cindy is in our air monitoring section. So she works with those stationary air monitors that measure pollutants in the outdoor air and look at regional sort of pollutants like that. We also have Jim Haywood. So Jim is our air modeler. Jim's role is a little bit different in that he helps our permit engineers look at what kind of pollution impacts there might be if this permit was to be issued. So I like to call it future casting. Jim and I, talk about it in a little different ways, but he's happy also to talk with you about those things. And then there's a couple other people in the background here that I want to introduce. They don't have their cameras on, but Caitlin DeVries and Mike Gurney are here with Eagle, and they help us make sure that these Zoom meetings go smoothly. So we really appreciate their time and efforts as well. So if staff want to go ahead and turn their cameras off, besides you, Andy, because I'm going to pass you the mic in just a second here. So just want to go over that agenda again. Like I mentioned, we're going to have this informational session where you're going to be hearing from both sets of staff. You're going to hear from Andy and Joe and Mel. We're going to get into that question and answer where we're going to hopefully be able to respond to some of your questions, anything that you might put in the chat, things like that. Because we do have a little bit more content for you tonight, we're going to shoot to have that question and answer session done by around 7:15 tonight, or whenever your questions are done, whatever comes earliest, and then we'll get into that hearing portion of the night. So if you still have questions at 7:15 and we haven't quite gotten to all of them, we'll definitely get back to you, one-on-one for those. We don't want to leave people with their questions unanswered. So then we're going to go into the air permit hearing. So we're going to be talking about how you can comment on both of these things, but the hearing tonight is going to be only for the air quality permit that we're going to be talking about. So if that is confusing, I'll go over it again, and we can definitely answer any clarifying questions that you might have. Once we get past the hearing, we'll just go over a couple other things, where you can continue to submit comments, because this is not your only opportunity to comment. We have a lot of other ways that you can submit comments until the end of the comment period, which is March 17th. So there's still plenty of time for that if you don't want to do your comments tonight. We'll also talk a little bit about where you can find other information, and then how you can contact our staff if you have any other questions on things. All right, so I am going to go ahead and we're going to start this air permit discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the presentation over to Andy. Andy, whenever you're ready, you should be good to go, and go ahead and take it on over.
There we go. Thank you. My name is Andy, and I'm the lead permit engineer for Eagle Mine's air permit application. I worked with a team of air quality staff, including some of those on our panel, to review the application. Before we get into the details of the project, I would like to talk about what the Air Quality Division does and how the permitting process works. Air pollution comes from many different sources, including power plants, fuel-burning vehicles, and various industrial sources. The overall mission of the AQD is to protect public health and the environment. We provide this protection by using our authority under the state and federal laws through the regulation of industrial sources. AQD staff do a lot of different things. We monitor levels of air pollutants. We look at toxic air contaminants to make sure public health is protected. We conduct inspections of facilities to make sure they comply with their permits and any other rules that apply. And we review applications and write permits for sources of air pollutants, making sure the proposed projects comply with state and federal rules to protect public health. As I said, part of our role is to regulate and permit industrial sources of air pollution, such as power plants, auto assembly plants, steel mills, and Eagle Mine. We do this by reviewing permit applications submitted by these industrial facilities. And there are some things the draft permit does not cover and that we are not able to regulate. These include zoning, noise, and traffic on public roads. You will want to talk to your local government if you have questions or concerns about these issues. Our responsibility is to evaluate the project as proposed to ensure it meets all air quality rules that apply. If a project meets those rules, we are required to issue the air permit. To make sure a company is meeting air quality rules and regulations, we require them to have a permit to install for the equipment. From the time a company applies for a permit to when we publish the proposed permit for public comment, air quality staff take part in a thorough evaluation of what the company is asking for. This process is highly detailed and often takes months to complete. But I'd like to give you a simple overview of the process. First, the company decides they want to install, modify, or construct a source of air emissions. Then the company submits a permit application. Applications vary in length and contain technical details about the project. The application is then reviewed by an engineer like myself to decide if the request can meet the state and federal air quality rules. During the review, other air quality staff are involved to help with different parts, including members on our panel. This includes the review of toxic air contaminants, also called TACs or TACs. We look at how the emissions may impact the surrounding community through modeling, and that is something that Jim helps with. If these rules are met, the engineer, and in this case that was me, creates a draft permit. The permit is legally binding and contains requirements, which are basically rules the company must follow to show the equipment will be installed and operated as we reviewed it. If public comment is required, the draft permit is posted for the public to comment on, and public comment is a very important part of the permitting process. Once the comment period ends, we evaluate every comment submitted, and the comments are treated the same regardless of how they are submitted. The comments can lead to changes in the permit and the final decision. And finally, a decision is made on the permit application. This decision could be to approve the permit as drafted, approve the permit with changes, or to deny the permit. This decision is based on whether the proposed project can meet the air quality regulations. So what is Eagle Mine requesting? Eagle Mine is proposing to install and operate a paste backfill process, which includes an extension to the coarse ore storage area called COSA building for storing dewatered tailings, a new cement silo, a new screen and mixer in the COSA extension for mixing tailings and cement to make paste backfill, and piping to pump paste backfill into the mine. The proposed paste backfill could replace a portion of the cemented backfill currently in use that is made by mixing aggregate and cement and that is then trucked into the mine. Eagle Mine is also asking to increase the ore trucking permit limit about 3% to allow more ore trucks through the facility per year. So let's take a closer look at the proposed paste backfill process. Eagle Mine would bring dewatered tailings from the Humboldt mill in ore trucks and put the tailings inside the COSA building extension. And I know this is not what Eagle's trucks look like, but this is just for illustration. Tailings from the storage pile and cement from the new cement silo would be added to the screen and mixer to produce paste backfill. Paste backfill would then be pumped directly into the mine to fill areas that are no longer in use. This stabilizes the surrounding rock mass, prevents cave-ins, and improves worker safety. So now that we've talked about what Eagle Mine is requesting, let's talk about how we review a permit application. It takes a team of staff with different expertise to review all parts of the application. I will discuss our work in more detail in the upcoming slides, but I want to give you a brief overview before we dive deeper. So we did a thorough regulatory review. This is to ensure all state and federal rules are evaluated and applied appropriately. We evaluated the proposed air emissions. This includes checking the emission calculations and ensuring the pollutants are restricted. We did an air toxics review to make sure that toxic air contaminants meet health-based screening levels. As part of the review, we did air modeling for criteria pollutants and toxic air contaminants. We need to know if Eagle Mine's proposed project meets these requirements. I'm going to talk in more detail about the different parts of the review in the coming slides. In this slide, I will talk about the categories or groups of air pollutants. The first group are criteria pollutants. This is a small group of well-studied and regulated pollutants, such as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, volatile organic compounds, and particulates. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, known as EPA, sets national ambient air quality standards, referred to as NAAQS, for criteria pollutants. These standards are concentrations of a pollutant that are considered protective of public health and the environment. Hazardous air pollutants, known as HAPs, are a larger group of pollutants. These are known or suspected to cause health or environmental effects. We regulate these pollutants using the applicable federal regulations. If no federal regulations apply, as in this case, then we evaluate these pollutants through our state toxics rules for toxic air contaminants. The toxic air contaminants, those are a larger group of pollutants covered by Michigan rules. They include almost any non-criteria air pollutant, including the hazardous air pollutants. Our rules allow our toxicologists to set health-based screening levels for these pollutants. TACs being released must meet these screening levels. I'll talk a little bit more about these different pollutants in the next few slides. This table shows the criteria pollutant emissions from Eagle Mine. During our review, we evaluated emissions from the entire facility. This information can also be found in Table 2 of the technical fact sheet. This information is important because we use it to see if a project will trigger specific regulations designed to allow for growth in an area while protecting against deterioration of the air quality of the area. While Eagle Mine's emissions do not trigger these prevention of significant deterioration regulations, known as PSD, we modeled the PM10 and PM2.5 emissions to ensure any future impacts would meet the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. I will talk about modeling shortly. I want to discuss toxic air contaminants and their health-based screening levels in a little bit more detail. The screening levels are developed to protect against health issues like developing cancer or breathing problems. When we're performing our review, we look at the toxic air contaminants that could be released to the air and compare them against the health-based levels, often using computer dispersion modeling. When we performed our review, we looked at all toxic air contaminants from the entire facility. Our review of the proposed emissions and the modeling, which I will talk about next, determined the proposed emissions would comply with the health-based screening levels. So what is modeling and why is it important to the review of a permit application? Computer modeling predicts what concentrations people in the area could be exposed to under worst-case scenarios. The modeling simulates a grid of virtual air monitors surrounding the facility. This allows the highest ground-level concentration to be determined, no matter its location, which is often right on the company's property line. Each virtual monitor must be below the impact level for the project to move forward. If even one virtual monitor is over, the project cannot be approved. Modeling was done for toxic air contaminants and the criteria pollutants PM10 and PM2.5, and included emissions from the entire facility, including fugitive sources like the development rock storage pile and vehicle traffic on site. The modeling showed that proposed emissions of all toxic air contaminants meet their health-based screening levels, and the criteria pollutants would be in compliance with the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. So let's talk about what a permit is, and then I will give you more details about the proposed permit for Eagle Mine. A permit is a legally enforceable document with a list of requirements called conditions the company must comply with. Think of it as a set of rules the company must follow. The requirements in the permit ensure the project operates as described in the application and the way it was reviewed by myself and the rest of the AQD permitting team. A permit has requirements such as emission limits, material limits, operating parameters for control devices and other equipment, and monitoring, record keeping, and reporting. The proposed draft permit conditions include limits and operational requirements for the proposed equipment based on our technical review. Most of the conditions from Eagle Mine's current permit have not been changed. In this slide, I will talk about the permit conditions for the paste backfill process. The paste backfill process will be inside the COSA extension. The COSA extension and the new silo will have visible emission limits. The new silo has to have a bin vent filter. Tailings can only be unloaded and stored inside the enclosed COSA extension. The fugitive dust plan has to be implemented and maintained to control particulate matter emissions, and malfunction abatement plans are required for the COSA extension, the paste backfill process, and the new cement silo to prevent or fix equipment problems that may arise. Aside from the increase in the number of ore trucks, the conditions for vehicle traffic have not changed. The number of ore trucks per year has been increased from 17,140 to 17,703. There is a visible emission limit for vehicle traffic on site. The fugitive dust plan has to be implemented and maintained to control particulate matter emissions. Most roads on site have to be paved, and there is a truck wash for trucks leaving areas where contact with ore is possible. So I'll now turn it over to Joe, the inspector for the facility.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Scanlon. I'm one of the staff out of the Marquette District Office for the Air Quality Division. I am the Air Quality Inspector for the Eagle Mine facility. So part of the district role is to determine if the facility is operating in compliance with the corresponding permit, as well as other applicable state and federal air quality regulations. So as district staff, we achieve this by conducting on-site inspections periodically and reviewing company reports and records. Typically, an inspection entails the following steps you see here on this slide, including obtaining monitoring data and operational parameters to establish baseline conditions and to determine compliance with permit conditions and regulations, reviewing company records for compliance determinations, performing visible emission observations of point and fugitive sources, and also checking for any unpermitted changes. To reiterate what Andy said previously, this proposed permit has emission limits for various pollutants, including visible emissions. The company demonstrates continuous compliance with the permit requirements by operating the process within the material usage limits, transportation limits, and by continuously monitoring and reporting required operating parameters that are within the permit. Company records, monitoring data, and reports are mechanisms which show continuous compliance. The AQD requires the company to provide this information to verify compliance, and district staff will request these records in conjunction with the on-site inspection. For example, we will request daily, monthly, annual records of the number and size of ore transport trucks, daily records for underground water or dust suppression activities, daily screen plant throughput, etc., any other requirements that are required to be recorded. These records provide indicators of proper operation of emission controls, as well as process operating parameters, and are audited by district staff, such as myself, to ensure compliance. On-site inspections are summarized in an inspection evaluation document and are available for public review online through the MyEnviro portal. We'll turn this over to Mel for her part of the presentation.
Thank you, Joe. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. All right, thank you, Joe. Thank you for everyone for taking the time to join us this evening. I'm here to present information about the mining permit amendment application for Eagle Mine's paste backfill project proposed for Eagle Mine in northern Marquette County. Eagle Mine holds a mining permit that was issued under the non-ferrous metallic mineral mining law and rules, which is Part 632 of Michigan's Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act. An amendment to a mining permit may be initiated by a permittee for approval of changes to mining operations. An amendment request is required to include applicable changes to the environmental impact assessment and mining and reclamation and environmental protection plans. Another permit that is affected by this project is the air use permit to install, which we've heard about already this evening. And AQD will be seeking comments on the proposed decision for the air permit during the hearing later. Eagle Mine also submitted an underground injection control or UIC inventory form to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency as required by UIC regulations. I'll further explain the activities proposed in this project that would fall under UIC program. We received the application on December 12th, and then we had 30 days to make a determination whether the proposed project is a significant change to the conditions of the approved mining permit. On January 10th, Geologic Resources Management Division, or GRMD, made a determination that the changes are significant, and the application was considered administratively complete on January 28th. The determination of administratively complete does not restrict the department from asking for additional information during the technical review of the application. Notice of this meeting and written public comment period was posted on January 30th, and we will be accepting written comments regarding the amendment application through March 25th, which is 28 days following this meeting as required by the statute. Unless extensions are necessary for completion of the review, a final decision on the application is due by April 8th or a proposed decision by April 22nd. If a proposed decision is made, then a hearing will be scheduled with another opportunity for the public to provide comments before a final decision is made. The determination as to whether to make a final decision or proposed decision after the close of this public comment period will depend on public interest. All comments provided will be reviewed and taken into consideration prior to making any decisions. The proposed changes to the mine plan are to construct a tailing storage area and paste backfill plant in the existing mining area to produce a paste backfill material using dewatered and low sulfur tailings generated at Eagle Mine's Humboldt Mill and transported to Eagle Mine in the now empty ore haul trucks. Tailings are the fine-grained material that's left over after targeted minerals are extracted from the ore. This project will also require construction of a borehole from the surface to underground workings to transport the paste backfill. The mining permit currently authorizes use of crushed development rock to produce a cement rockfill or CRF for backfilling underground workings. The temporary development rock storage area, or TDRSA, here temporarily stores rock that is hauled up from underground, which is removed to gain access to the ore body. Much of this rock is crushed on the TDRSA, then mixed with cement in the CRF plant and hauled underground to backfill mined out areas. The reclamation plan for the TDRSA is not proposed to be changed. Therefore, even if the paste backfill project is approved, all the development rock will still be hauled back underground, the TDRSA removed, and the area restored to pre-mining conditions. Here are two figures with a plan or map view of the proposed construction. Figure 1 on the left shows the current facilities in light blue, and the yellow, gray, purple, and blue lines are the extent of the underground workings looking down from above. The gray is existing development, yellow is planned development, and this is where the development rock comes from. The purple outline is the upper Eagle East ore body, and the blue outline is the deeper Eagle East ore. Building 4 is right here. That's the coarse ore storage area, or COSA. Ore is hauled to this building from underground and then loaded onto haul trucks and transported off-site to Humboldt Mill for processing. The figure on the right shows the location in green of the proposed new construction, which would be an enclosed addition to the COSA building for tailing storage and the paste backfill plant. This figure also shows the location of the proposed borehole at the surface And this new construction would be within this existing mining area. The figure on the left is a cross-section view showing Eagle Mine's mineral deposits, which are these orange and red and brown areas within the host rock, which is shown in purple. So much of the development rock is coming from these purple areas. The paste backfill is proposed only to be used in the upper Eagle East and Eagle East areas of the mine on the right side of this figure. Paste backfill is not proposed to be used to backfill the Eagle deposit on the left side of this figure. Cement rock fill would continue to be used to backfill this area. Eagle Mine is not planning to discontinue production and use of cement rock fill, only to add the tailings paste as another source of backfill material for upper Eagle East and Eagle East areas of the mine. This figure also shows the trace or location of the proposed borehole from the surface to the underground workings. And the figure on the right shows the general construction of the proposed borehole. The plan is to install steel pipe casing routed into bedrock and install a separate inner steel paste pipe where paste backfill will pass through. Transporting paste backfill through the proposed borehole is the reason that the UPA UIC regulations apply to this project. The UIC form and associated documents were included in Appendix C of the mining permit amendment application, if anyone is interested in more information on that. The amendment application currently under review includes information on the geochemical characterization of the tailings paste backfill. Part 632 requires this characterization for all geologic materials encountered or produced during mining operations. This characterization determines if the materials are predicted to be reactive, meaning whether they could possibly generate acidic conditions when exposed to air and water, and release of dissolved metals or other substances from a leachate. This characterization informs the permitting decisions regarding management and monitoring of these materials. The development rock storage area, TDRSA, was previously characterized as potentially reactive, the rock was. This is why the material is temporarily stored on a lined facility at the surface. There is also a mining permit condition requiring addition of limestone, which is commonly used as a neutralizing material, at a rate of 20 tons of limestone for every 1,000 tons of development rock that is stored on the TDRSA. Eagle Mine is proposing a modification to this condition to allow for an adaptive management approach in which the chemistry of the water that comes in contact with the development rock be used to determine whether limestone addition requirements should be modified as approved by the department. In other words, evaluate whether the addition of limestone is necessary based on monitored site conditions. A quality assurance project plan is a document that outlines procedures for sampling and monitoring of groundwater and surface water. Following these procedures and methods is necessary for quality assurance and quality control to ensure that water quality data being generated is reliable and representative of site conditions. The mining permit conditions require strict adherence to the QAPP, also known as QAP, that was approved in the 2006 original mining permit application. Eagle Mine proposes a new condition to allow for submitting requests to modernize and update the QAP as necessary to the department for review and approval. That concludes an overview of the mining permit proposed changes. For more details and information, the application documents are available on the non-ferrous metallic mining website under the Eagle Mine tab. The application documents have the words paste backfill in the title. And to provide written comments and questions regarding the mining permit amendment application, or if there are any issues with accessing documents, please send an email to egle-mining-comments@michigan.gov or mail comments to 416 Avenue C, Wynn, Michigan 49841. Thank you for your attention and look forward to your questions and comments.
Thanks, Mel, for running through that. And thanks to Andy and Joe as well. Appreciate that. So we're going to get into the Q&A right now. So if I can have my panelists turn their cameras back on. Yep, Mel, you got to leave yours on now, at least for a little bit. So if Joe and Andy, and then if I can have, let me just check everybody. Mike, Cindy, and then Jolene. Perfect. You guys are awesome. All right. So, If, as a reminder, I don't have anybody calling in tonight, so we don't necessarily have to go over that. But if you do have a question about the air permit or the amendment to the mining permit, you can go ahead and type those questions into that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Or you can use that raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand, and we're happy to have you ask your questions verbally as well. I know, thank you to Mike and Caitlin. They've been putting some information in the chat for everybody, just some follow-up on links and other information on how to dig into these projects a little bit more if you're interested. I know you heard us talk a little bit about it as Andy and Melanie were talking through their parts of this project. When we get to the hearing portion in a little bit, that's going to be solely on the air permit section. We'll go over again how you can submit those written comments on the amendment to the mining permit as well. So we will go over that after the hearing too. But just so that folks know, there's a couple different things going on. So I want to make sure we're being clear on that. So I'll give you just a minute or so, make sure people don't have questions. I don't have any questions in my Q&A box right now, but definitely want to make sure that we leave plenty of time for that if folks do have questions. So I'll give you just a minute. And make sure nobody's typing away. It's unlike the iPhone where you can kind of tell if somebody's writing you a message and so you can hold. So we'll just make sure we give you guys a little bit of time here to type stuff in before we move over into the hearing portion of the night. So this is an interesting question. Melanie, I'm going to see if you can answer this, but Jolene might be the one to do it as well. So we talked a little bit about, I think you heard probably Joe and Andy mention My Enviro portal. So just a little bit of background for folks who might be new to this. Our Water Resources Division has been using My Enviro portal as kind of their main access point to public information and other things for quite a while now. Back in December, our air quality division started using that system as well. So the great thing about My Enviro portal, at least from an air quality standpoint, is in the past, we would be able to post some kinds of information on just our regular EGLE webpage, but it was pretty limited. So it was limited to like final permit actions, inspection reports, stack test or like emissions testing reports, violation notices and things like that. So now that we've gone over to My Enviro portal, one of the really neat things that happens through that system is that you can sign up to get notifications. So let's say you are really interested in things about Eagle Mine, you would sign up for notifications for the county that you live in or wherever you're interested, and you can do multiple. And it kind of gives you like a little bit of an email when something comes in. So we're really excited about it from an air quality standpoint. We've just kind of started using it, like I said, back in December. So we're still getting used to it, but so far, so good. But the question was, why isn't Geologic Resources Management Division using My Enviro? And I know you guys have your different ways of allowing the public to access information and things like that. But so Melanie, even if you can't necessarily address why is your division not using My Enviro, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you guys do use and how to find information about the things that you all do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can't answer the question why. I think it started off with Water Resource Division and all the water permitting, water quality permitting. And then of course now air is moving into that My Enviro. And I don't think there's any plans for Geologic Resources Management Division to do that, but we do post on our website. I mentioned the non-ferrous metallic mining, or actually there are all the different web pages on our website will have information about the various programs that we have. And specifically for the non-ferrous metallic mining, we have separate tabs for each project that's out there, both active permits and then projects that may not have permits or that permits are not effective. And under that tab, we will put in, like, for example, we have the application for this proposal for Eagle Mine, but also we will have annual reports on that website. So the any active mine is required to submit an annual report that includes all of the monitoring, everything that's gone on, all the mining that's occurred, all the activities from the previous year. And those do get posted on our website as well. And those are due March 15th. So that would be some examples of the information that we have. And we also post any like determinations or, things that are submitted by the company that are required.
Yeah, thanks for that, Melanie. I think when we were talking before, when we're just getting ready for this meeting, you were definitely okay with people reaching out if they can't find something, or, happy to help point folks in the right direction as well. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So this question came in, Andy, and I think this is going to be for Andy and then probably for Jim. So the question is related to the vehicle traffic that you talked about, Andy. So you had mentioned in your presentation that there was an allowance in the draft permit for more truck traffic, more vehicle loads going through. So the question is, are those emissions considered in or not? And if so, how are they? And if not, why not? So I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that, but then Jim might be able to chime in if there was some aspects of modeling that went into that as well.
Yeah, so emissions from trucks traveling on the mine site inside the fence line of the facility, those were included in the permit evaluation, including in the modeling that Jim did. So we looked at the emissions from all the truck traffic on site. Truck traffic on public roads is outside our authority in the air permit process. We have no legal authority to evaluate truck traffic on public roads.
So is there anything that Jim would want to chime in on that, Andy, or you feel like that question, that you've answered that question?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead, Jim. You have a question.
Sorry, I can't see all of you, so I didn't know if he unmuted or not. I apologize.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that, but when we do the modeling and then we include that, we call those fugitives, which are typically ground level released particulates. And being as low as they are, they don't have to travel too far before we get our maximum impact, which is almost always along the property line.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Just as a follow-up, they were asking truck traffic in the mine site, does that include all the sand, cement, and gravel trucks? So we're kind of looking at everything collectively. Andy, is that true?
Yes, that's all the trucks. It's the trucks
Okay.
bringing, taking ore out, the trucks moving around inside, bringing ore from underground, bringing it up to the ore building, and all the trucks moving development rock. It's all the truck traffic on site.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for answering that. I appreciate it. I'm going to keep you on the line here. This question is for you as well, and maybe for Mike Deppa too. So the question is, can Eagle staff share how impacts from air deposition are considered in the air permit review process?
So deposition for an air permit is typically very limited. Based on our experience, we've not found many issues with depositional impacts. Typically, our threshold if we're going to do deposition would be for mercury, it's their 5 pounds a year of mercury or more. For Eagle Mine, it's much, much less than that. So for most permit applications in general, we don't do air deposition modeling for the air permit. For Eagle Mine, under the Part 632 permit, deposition modeling has been done. For Eagle Mine, we did not update that this time because the change in emissions is very small. And so it doesn't seem to be something we need to redo. Everything passed before.
Yeah, thanks for talking through that, Andy. I appreciate it. Melanie, this question is going to be for you. Actually, the next two are, we've got a couple that I think you can answer. So the first question is, did Eagle Mine receive a UIC permit, or by rule, is in parentheses, something else?
I have not been informed that they've received that permit, no.
Okay. Is that something that we would be able to share later? I'm unfamiliar with how your rules work, so I apologize if I'm asking a follow-up that doesn't make sense. But if folks wanted to get an answer to that, would we know? Is it something we could share later down the line? Something like that?
We could share that. We don't review that aspect of it. That is a
Okay.
separate under EPA. But
Okay.
they'll probably have some information on their website as well about that. But yeah, they did submit the form, or what they submitted to the EPA in the application. So that's available for review.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So this second question is about that diagram that you showed that showed the boreholes. So it says the borehole map shows the location within the surficial aquifer. Will there be additional water monitoring wells associated with the project?
Yes, good question. Another monitoring well, a new monitoring well was installed this past fall, down gradient of the that where that new addition is going to go. So that would also be down gradient of the proposed borehole. I believe there's a figure in the application that shows where that is located.
Yeah, thank you for responding to that. Those are the questions that I have right now. So like I said, we'll give you guys another few minutes just to make sure nobody has any other questions or any follow-ups that they want to ask the panel before we move on. Just give you a minute or so to make sure there's nothing else folks are interested in talking more about. Oh, good question. So Mel, I think this one would be for you. So, but if it's not, feel free to pass it along to one of our other panelists. So the question is that the tailings are described as, quote, low moisture or partially dewatered. So what is the expected percentage of water in the tailings that will return to the mine? Is there any additional monitoring along the haul route? So if you don't know that, you might not know the answer to that question, and maybe we don't have the right people on. So just if you don't, let me know because I'm not positive about that.
I'm not sure exactly what it down to the percentage. The tailings would be dewatered at the Humboldt mill, and they go to down to it where they're damp but not like flowable when they get hauled to Eagle Mine from the mill. Once they get to the mill, then of course they'd go through the paste backfill process through the plant, and then water would be added back in to make it flowable, so it would can go down to the underground workings. So
Okay.
Question. I don't have the exact percentage, but it is like it's moist, but not like wet.
Gotcha. No, I think that's probably helpful. And if it's not, definitely, ask us a little bit more. This question is also for you. So does the public need to request a hearing on the MPA? And if you can just say again what MPA means, just in case other folks that aren't the asker of the question don't remember what it is.
I think the MPA refers to the mining permit application.
Okay.
So if you want a hearing on this, on a decision for this project, then certainly we would consider that.
Okay. So yeah, I'm thinking back to the slide that you had that kind of had the timeline in there, and you talked a little bit about the hearing will be held if there's public interest. So that,
yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So Andy, this one, actually, I think this one is for Joe. We're going to go to Joe first. The question is related to stack testing. And you probably know in the draft permit, if there's a stack testing requirement, the questioner wants to know, when was the last stack test? Will there be another one on specifically the MVAR? So again, if you can say what that piece of equipment is, just to remind folks, and then talk a little bit about the last stack test, that would be awesome.
Yeah, the MVAR is the main ventilation air raise. So that would be the main stack, basically. The last stack test was when the mine first went into operation, and I don't have the date in front of me. I want to say it was 2012, but yeah, don't quote me on that. There is no stack test requirement for this particular permit. We do have in the conditions for this permit, however, we have AQD reserves the right to request a stack test from the facility for particulate matter, for PM, nickel and copper emissions. So we do have that right to request that a stack test if we deem necessary.
Yeah, thanks,
I
Joe.
can find that date for the last one here if you guys give me a
Okay,
minute.
yeah, that'd be great. And we can always share it out in the chat too. I know that
Yeah.
it's one of those things that folks can access in My Enviro now, so it should be in there. Again, if you can't find it, please let us know. We're happy to help you navigate it as we're learning how to do all of that too. So Melanie, this one is for you, I think. And if again, if we can't don't if we can't answer it tonight, I think that's okay. We can always get back to the questioner as well. So when will the Humboldt Mill mine permit be amended in terms of their tailings process changes? Are there detailed plans for the recovery from the pit, et cetera?
The proposed plan for processing the tailings for paste backfill at the mill was approved last year. They're not talking about taking tailings out of the pit at this time. It would be processing the tailings from, separating them out from the process in the mill. And they submitted that last year, and there didn't require any changes to the mining permit conditions. So that was processed as a insignificant amendment.
Okay, yeah, thank you for going over that. I know there's a lot of intricacies when it comes to how things are done and what you guys do with your mining permits and what we do with air permits. Everything is kind of handled a little differently. This question is related to the duration of the process. So Melanie, I think this one's going to be for you too, just because it's from that kind of mining aspect. Is what is the expected duration of the paste backfill operation? Is it through the current life of the mine, or is there a different date? Do they have to come back in and ask for something more? How does that work?
Right now, the current life of mine is 2029, and that was reiterated in this application that we're reviewing. The expected duration of the paste backfill would be till the end of the mining, till the mining closes. I think construction, they were hoping if they get approval, they would start construction later this year and hopefully begin processing, I think, by next year. Also, I wanted to add from that last question that the Humboldt Mill amendment is still available on our website, our non-ferrous metallic mining website, under the Humboldt Mill tab, if anybody's interested in that.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And Mike might be able to find that quickly and share it out through the chat as well. This question is kind of a follow-up to the last one. So they said that Eagle Mine and Revex are both talking publicly about removing tailings from the pit. Have they been and have been making statements about removing tailings? So I don't know if you probably have a little more context than I do on that. So I don't know if there's anything you want to speak to.
Yes, I have heard that as well. I think initially there would not be plans to remove tailings from the pit, but that could be something that they're interested in if there is an interest in processing the tailings to pull more minerals out of it, and one of them is pyrrhotite.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for talking a little bit more about that. I appreciate it. Oh yeah, thank you very much, Joe. So Joe let me know that the last stack test for the MVAR was conducted on September 17th, 2014. So if you folks want more information about that, we're happy to share that as well. All right. So that's the questions I have in the question box right now. Like I said, we'll, give folks another minute or so just to make sure there's no other ones that are coming in before we move on to the hearing portion. We have definitely time tonight to spend more on questions, so we're happy to do that. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any other questions. I'm happy to dilly-dally around for a little bit more just to make sure that we don't have any. But I think we're probably going to be okay with moving into the hearing portion of the night. So just as a reminder, panelists, just hold on just, for another minute. I'm going to do a little bit of reminding here just to make sure there's no other questions coming in. But that once we get to that hearing portion of the night, that's going to be on the air permit only. So I know we had Melanie, thank you very much for all the information that you provided. But this verbal comment period is going to be solely on the information that Andy talked about. So think back about that air permit. Again, we're happy to, take comments on other things, but we will remind you how you can submit comments on the information that Melanie provided tonight as well. We'll do that after the hearing. So I'm still not seeing any questions. So I think panelists, I'm going to go ahead and have you turn your cameras off. And Annette, if you don't mind turning yours on, and we will get into that hearing portion of the night. So thanks a lot, panelists. Appreciate the responses to the questions that you provided tonight. Hold on one second here. All right. So before we get into officially opening the the public hearing, I want to go over just a little bit about air permitting public comments. So, a lot of times people ask us questions, what can I comment on? What can't I comment on? What's a good comment? What's not a good comment? So we just put a little bit of information together that hopefully will help guide you. But the main thing that we want to make sure folks know is that everyone is free to comment on anything that they would like to. There really is no limit, but there's certainly things that are more likely to make an impact on the final decision. So things that are focused on the content and basis of the draft permit. Andy went over a lot of different parts of the review, different things that would be required if the permit was issued. So things like that that are focused on that content are really a lot more likely to lead to changes. So comments that request specific changes to be made. So I like to use this example. It's very like kind of a silly example, but it's like if we're missing a punctuation or there's a grammar issue or a sentence isn't reading right, that's going to be a lot easier for us to change than something that's like, you should fix all the typos. So again, most people comment on very specific things in the permit, but I just like to give a little bit of an example of what I'm talking about there. Comments that are least likely to lead to changes are going to be things that are outside of the scope of that draft permit, that are things related to things that air quality doesn't have the regulatory authority over. So what things we don't have rules related to, like zoning and truck traffic, noise, things like that. And then it's also if whether or not a project is supported or opposed by a community, we cannot consider that in our final decision as well. We definitely encourage, like I said, everyone to comment on, the things that they feel passionate about with these permits that we're putting forward. But hopefully this is a little bit of a guide for you. Oh, and I knew I clicked that too many times, so apologies for that. We're going to go ahead and open up the hearing. I just have a brief statement. It's a lot shorter than it used to be. So just so everybody knows, it used to be quite a bit longer, but we do have an official statement that we need to read to open the hearing up. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this public hearing. My name is Jennifer Dixon, and I'm with the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, and I will be the hearing officer tonight. Annette Switzer, Air Quality Division Director, is the decision maker for this permit application. She'll be listening to your comments this evening. She'll be considering all comments before making a decision. So this hearing is related to a request from Eagle Mine located on AAA Road in Big Bay, Michigan. The company is requesting to install and operate a paste backfill process and to increase the ore trucking permit limit. The Air Quality Division regulates sources of air pollutants to minimize adverse impacts on public health and the environment. The law governing these responsibilities is Part 55 of the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act. Before the company can install and operate any new equipment, it must obtain a permit that meets the requirements of Michigan's air quality laws. This means the equipment must be capable of meeting state and federal emission standards, including health-based standards. The proposed permit must also contain conditions that include emission limits and specific ways of operating the equipment to ensure these standards are met. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to allow anyone interested in the proposed permit to provide information we can use in deciding whether to approve the permit or if there are additional issues to consider. The proposed permit is still a draft permit. This does not mean a decision has been made. Instead, it reflects an initial technical review of the proposal. We hope having the details of the draft permit will help you provide comments. Everything in the draft permit remains open for comment and further consideration, including whether the permit will be granted at all. As we review comments, we can only use the information you provide to make changes if it is within our authority. So for example, comments about local zoning, truck traffic, and noise may not be considered as part of the decision. Some of you may want to simply express your support or opposition to the proposed project. We're happy to note your position, but please understand the department is, by law, not allowed to base our decision on whether there is widespread support or opposition to the proposed project. This hearing is being recorded and your comments will be part of the information we consider in making a decision. The public comment period began on January 23rd and will end at midnight on March 17th, 2025. Additional comments or information may be submitted via written or verbal comment during this hearing by email or by voicemail. After the public comment period closes, all written and verbal comments will be reviewed. All significant air quality related comments will be considered, at which point the decision maker makes a final decision. The decision maker may deny the permit, approve as drafted, or approve with amendments. If approved, the decision must specify which provisions of the draft permit, if any, have been changed in the final permit and the reasons for the change. In all three scenarios, all interested parties, including everyone on the original mailing list, anyone who provided comments during the public comment period and/or attended the public hearing, will be directly notified of the decision. The mailing will include a letter from the decision maker regarding the decision and, if applicable, the approved permit. Please recognize our staff are here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your views on the proposed project and to listen to your comments. As a reminder, you do not need to comment tonight to have your comment considered. You may submit a written comment at any time during the comment period by US Post or email, or you may call in a comment to the public comment voicemail box. I will go over how to do all of that after the hearing. Those who have joined us online may submit your comment in writing tonight by typing the word comment into your question box, and then we will read those comments out loud. We will limit your verbal comment time to about 3 minutes. If you're speaking, I will let you know when you have about 30 seconds left. I'll begin calling the names of the people who indicate they would like to make a verbal comment tonight. And once we get through the initial list, anyone else who would like to comment will be able to do so, even if you didn't indicate earlier that you would like to. So if there are folks on the line that would like to make a comment tonight, please use that raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and we'll go ahead and we'll try to call those in the order that hands are raised. Like I mentioned, you can type your comment into the comment box. Just type the word comment first, and then whatever your comment is, and then we'll read those comments out loud unless you state do not read. Some people don't want their comments read out loud. And if you are making a comment, if you wouldn't mind just stating your name and any affiliation that you have for the record, that would also be really helpful. So if you'd like to just go ahead and raise your hands now, we have plenty of time to take comments tonight. Okay, Kathleen Heidemann, I see that your hand's raised. If you would like to make a comment, we should be able to go ahead and unmute your line, and then you should be able to, yep, there you go. You're unmuted, so just please state your name and any affiliation for the record before you start your comment.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Heidemann. I'm speaking on behalf of the Upper Peninsula Environmental Coalition tonight. So first, I would like to say thank you very much to the Air Quality Division for doing an interested parties letter. There have been groups that have followed the changes to Eagle Mine's permits for the past decade. And that small consideration, I don't know how difficult it was on your end, but it was very much appreciated. By contrast, there was no letter of interested parties or any form of direct notification from the geological resources management division side. And I'd like to state that it's a real impediment to public comment and disclosure of the permitting materials that you can't search for an active permit under review on the mining permit side within the Michigan Enviro portal, the My Enviro portal. I wish that we could search for the materials in the portal the same way we're searching for the materials on the air and the water side. So with that said, right now, tonight, there's a panel that I'm participating in at the same time about light pollution, including light pollution from Eagle Mine. I realize this is outside the scope technically of what the permit for the PTI covers, but recent research into air quality and light pollution shows a link between the two of them, showing that nitrate radicals that form in the atmosphere overnight during the evening and help cleanse the air actually are impacted by light pollution. And light pollution from Eagle Mine has been something that we have commented on repeatedly in permits for the past probably 7 years. And the problem has continued to grow. The light pollution from Eagle Mine's truck traffic and the light pollution from their surface facility, as well as light pollution from their truck washing facility out on the Yellow Dog Plains that doesn't get a lot of direct notice because it's not inside the mine site. And at this point, you can actually see the AAA lit up with the light pollution from the mine site. The blob of light pollution is spread across the plains. And I encourage you guys to have some consideration in the future for protecting air quality as well as light quality. I would note that the details that are not included in the permit are sometimes as important as the things that are included in the permit review. For example, the pit, which they do intend to process once they have the borehole and once they have a cement backfill set up to use their paste tailings process, they do plan on mining the pit to remove materials so that they can sell the facility to somebody else. Both the mine and Revex have been talking about this publicly, and that material in the pit has a lot of different contaminants than what the tailings test material or whatever they have decided to do in terms of bypassing their stream instead of putting more material in the pit. So, for example, when that change happens, that'll be, bringing up the material that has been mixed with Ropes Gold Mine tailings in the past, which includes cyanide. There's no mention of cyanide in any of the tailings analysis from the mine permit side, or the potential for there to be cyanide released in the dry tailings. And there's no discussion of how they could remove the cyanide from a tailings process. So just something as simple as that is raising a lot of alarms for those of us who are concerned about the EGLE facility, as well as the potential for transmission of that material, which is toxic, poisonous in dust, especially under the air permit. So I think we would respectfully request that it is overdue for the air permit, especially since this is a new permit to install for the changes that are happening out there. We would like to request a stack test be performed to confirm that Eagle Mine is meeting the tax limits for copper and nickel, and hopefully they are, but the copper and nickel quantity is rapidly going down at the mine site. And, it's really unfortunate that the total emissions have not been tested regularly, that was done, before the mine was even fully operational. So anyway, I have to jump to another meeting, but I really appreciate your information tonight. And we will be requesting a public hearing on the mine permit amendment. And thank you very much for your diligence on updating the public about this this hearing. It feels to be a little difficult that the information about the mining permit was injected into the information session on the air permit. tonight, sort of a turducken of permits, but thank you for the information about the air quality permit. And that's all I have to say tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathleen. Appreciate your comments. If I have anyone else who would like to make a comment tonight, just go ahead and use that raise hand icon and we'll get you unmuted so you can make your comment. I'm not seeing any other hands raised. Are you okay if I go ahead and close the hearing out?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. I just need to read a quick closing statement and then we'll get to a couple other things to go over before we let everybody go tonight. So thank you for taking time to participate in this meeting tonight. We really appreciate your interest in protecting Michigan's air quality. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, the public comment period will close at midnight on March 17th, 2025. All interested parties, anyone who provided comments during the public comment period, and anyone who attended this public hearing will be notified of the final decision on this proposed permit. The hearing is now closed. Thank you again. So just a couple other things to go over before folks sign off. Like we mentioned a few times, you do not have to make a comment tonight for your comment to be considered. There is a variety of other ways that you can do that. So you can send us something in the mail. You can submit your comment right in My Enviro portal, which is a really easy way to do it as well. You can send us an email. We're happy to take that. And then you can also call our public comment voicemail box and just leave your message verbally or your comment verbally. There's not one of these ways that is better than the other for us. We take them however you would like to give them to us. We just want to make sure that folks have the best opportunity to provide comments as they can. So you can also find all this information on our Eagle Air Public Notice page that will link you right to how you can make a comment and things like that. So it's just michigan.gov/Eagle Air Public Notice. So a lot of our information is on that page if you're looking for it. Not just related to permits, air permits, but other things as well. And then if you would like to comment on the mining permit, like Melanie talked about, they will take those comments in writing so that you can send those in the mail, or you can also send them an email as well. So their email address is eagle-mining-comments@michigan.gov. So we'll make sure to watch for those. Like I said, for at least the air permit, we are going to keep this comment period open until March 17th. So again, where can you find other information about that air permit? I think Caitlin and Mike are sharing information in the chat, so I really appreciate that if you want to go ahead and grab it. But pretty much what we have available for our air permit action is the proposed project summary. So if you haven't looked at these before, the proposed project summary is just a really high level overview of the proposed project. What is Eagle Mine asking for? A little bit about our review, information about how to comment, things like that. It's kind of like an FAQ or a frequently asked questions type of document. That technical fact sheet, Andy mentioned that as well. That's a lot of a deeper dive into our review that we do on the air permit application, the technical part, the rules, the evaluations, the emissions. So if you're interested in diving deeper into what Andy talked about, that is going to be where you want to do that. Those proposed permit terms and conditions, those are online as well. So that's what you would be commenting on, if you wanted changes to that permit. The commenter mentioned, a stack testing, that's definitely something that would be in that permit that could be commented on. We will also link to the recording of this meeting once it is ready. So if you have, like mentioned, people that weren't able to join tonight but are interested, we're happy to share this out after the meeting. We'll probably have the recording in the next couple of days or so, and then you'll get an email from Caitlin with all this information again. So we want to make sure that folks have access to that if they need it as well. So who can you contact with further questions? Here are all of our panelists. Jolene is not on here, but it was kind of like because we had a lot of other people, we thought this might be easier. So if you really want to talk to Jolene, you can get a hold of Melanie and she'll make sure that Jolene gets any questions or contacts that folks need. But you can definitely reach out to Andy or Joe or even Cindy and Mike, who we didn't hear from on there. I know if under toxics, we do have Brian Hughes. So Brian is Mike's manager and he's happy to get any questions to Mike on toxics that you might have as well. We did hear a little bit from Jim, so feel free to reach out to him too if anyone has questions on air modeling. So with that, I really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. We had a lot of great questions. So we love when people come and ask questions so that we can have a conversation about a little bit of our work to hopefully help you understand a little bit more. That being said, again, hope everybody has a great rest of your night. And Caitlin, if you want to go ahead and close out the meeting, I would really appreciate that.